Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Good Doctor's continuing coverage of Netflix's show, The Crown. This is coverage of episode 7. We are the Good Doctors. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And we are the Good Doctors of social science, by the way, and we both have PhDs in particularly Northern Irish society between the years of 1950 and 2015-ish, depending on when we did our research. But what we are really interested in is how the stories that people tell and the stories that cultures tell about themselves, how that shapes how people are within those cultures. And we spend a lot of time thinking about that and talking about that. And that's a lot of our coverage here on our YouTube channel and our work with our clients. I say all of that because I don't believe that anything in this episode happened in the order that it claimed it happened in. Vulture agrees with me.
Yeah.
Events described in this episode took place in 1984, 1983 possibly. We mentioned Harry, like Diana being pregnant. Harry was born in September of 84. So we're somewhere.
And like Edward's birthday had to have happened because we see her like hella pregnant.
So true. So we're in 1984. Her like lung situation was 1985, and the sisters were revealed in 1987. So no idea what's happening. But so what we will be covering, as we always do, is the story the show wants us to believe and what we think the show is saying about these historical events.
Yeah.
This particular episode, to recap it briefly, is the Margaret-centric tick box of this particular season.
In which Peter Morgan was like, oh crap, I paid Helena Bonham Carter a shit ton of money not to sit in the background and smoke cigarettes. So let's wheel her out.
And once again, we have positioned Margaret as the voice of reason in the royal family in this season. Fun, anachronistic, most likely, but fun. And we start off by, two kind of events that are happening at the same time. Like she gets really sick. She ends up having to have part of her lung removed. And in the light of this, like, I'm going to swear off drinking and smoking and I'm really ready to get to work. Lizzie, put me to work. Well, the issue is she can't be like within the know, as it were, anymore, because now Edward, a 21-year-old child, entirely by the laws of primogeniture, gets to be in the inner circle.
Like outranks her.
Of the laws we have had to deal with in this show, this is one of the dumber ones. Wow. But okay, so Margaret goes off the deep end again. She like flails away to one of the houses that I remember her and Tony using at one point.
And like that guy that Welsh dude that she slept with last season or something.
Yeah, I think he's back. Like this is all kind of happening.
Like,
and
it's so confusing. I couldn't tell what were flashbacks and what was recent at all.
Yeah. Don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So she's very desolate, whatever. The main relationship there are two main relationships that we really kind of examine in this episode. One is the one between Margaret and her mother.
Uh-huh.
And one is the one between Margaret and a gentleman named Dazzle, who was both her lover and a gay man from historical accounts. Cool. Everybody gets to take their own journey. Who then becomes a Catholic priest.
Like converts to Catholicism and
to become a Catholic priest. Again, I love that journey for him.
All God's children.
This unsettles Margaret just a little bit. And through reasons and ways and a whole lot of things, Margaret actually goes to therapy. Great job. Charles is the one that tells her to go. 2 thumbs up, Charles.
Anne finds her the therapist, loving that Anne and Charles are both in therapy. Given their father's speech at Edward's birthday, I don't blame them, because way to stand up at your son's 21st birthday and say your first 2 children were conceived out of duty and the second 2 were conceived out of joy.
Guys, Philip is not a good dude. Okay, so...
Peak Philip, that was.
Peak Philip. So... Anyway, we find out that Margaret and Elizabeth have cousins who Burke's peerage says died in 1961, but are very alive and well into the 80s and living at a mental health institution for developmentally delayed adults is what it looks like to me.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot of consternation about whether that they are relatives or what, and it turns out they are. And Margaret flips herself on up to the Queen Mom's Scottish bachelorette pad and demands a jaunt along the beach in which so much is happening in that scene. And Marion Bailey and Helena Bonham Carter act the absolute living crap out of it.
They do.
Essentially, Margaret confronts her mom and she's like, they're our family. Like, how the hell could you do this? The Queen Mom is like, but the abdication. Margaret's like, not everything in this family can be blamed on the abdication, which made me actually clap because that's true.
Great.
We've all had a solid 30 years to get used to it at this point now.
Honestly.
You can all, you're all okay.
You can all take a breath.
And there's a big screaming match. Margaret is once again reminded exactly who her family is. She goes back to Dazzle, tells Dazzle all of this. Dazzle gives her the option to completely change her life, convert to Catholicism, which evidently she considered, and give her life some purpose and structure and liturgy and kind of the other things that a lot of people are looking for when they convert to, more structured organizations. She flirts with the idea, she turns it down, and that's our episode. Couple things. We learned nothing in this episode for the advancement of the story that we didn't already know. Neither of us are particularly comfortable with how we interacted with the sisters. The sisters and everybody else at that institution feel a lot more like props than they do human beings to us. And there was just nothing about that I cared for. Except for the fact that they obviously they hired and I hope paid actors with developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
To act those scenes. So I hope that's true.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
it made me so uncomfortable because they
weren't happy.
They didn't even humanize them. Mm-hmm. And like the only moment where they humanized them was not while they were present. It was when Margaret was talking to her mom about it and her mom referred to them like as them and Margaret said their names. She said like Catherine and Nerissa. But yeah, it was all a vehicle for Margaret understanding her own mental health and apparently realizing that her family was terrible, which how did you not know this already? They forced you to not marry the only man you've ever really, really, really loved when you were like 25. And I'm sorry, you think these are the only skeletons in the proverbial closet of the Windsor family? What?
Or the extended network of whoever.
Or the extended network.
Your mother is obsessed with blood purity. Sorry.
And do I think the Hereditary Principle is a load of crap? Yes. But it is the foundation on which that entire system is built. And her mother was not wrong in her logic. Her mother was wrong in her morals and ethics. But if that was the only thing holding up the Windsor family, and you had a branch of the family that very clearly had significant developmental disabilities.
That I'm going to guess in 1930, 1940, we didn't really understand.
We didn't really understand. We certainly, Margaret getting mad at her for once Margaret finds out that it was not a threat to the bloodline. Yeah, Margaret, you have the signs to find that out in 1980, whatever year it is, but they didn't in 1935. So why are you surprised that your family behaved this way? Why are you transposing medical expertise from the 80s to the 1930s? And your uncle had abdicated and was also a not so secret Nazi. So
there's a lot of issues happening in your fam. And I agree that blaming everything on the abdication is shallow and unhelpful.
It's shallow. And I agree that it's horrible what they did.
Oh my gosh, top to bottom disgusting. And then the Crown didn't treat it well either. I don't know. I literally cannot understand why we have this episode. Beyond the fact that people love Margaret and Helen, this feels to me like a Netflix studio had said, hey, the highest episodes we get clicks on are Margaret episodes. Could you give us one?
Yeah.
But by the way, in the 1980s, Margaret's not part of the narrative that he's trying to tell.
At no point has she been centered. And she is in the periphery now because they have 4 grown children and the heir to the throne is married and now has 1 kid with another on the way. It was just so incongruous.
It was it felt to me a little bit like fan service in a bizarre way, where it was like, well, these people really loved Margaret in seasons 1 and 2, which some of us didn't, but really, really loved her. We didn't do a whole lot this season so far. People really love Margaret. We should give them Margaret episode, but it's not the story you're telling.
Yeah.
It's not the story you're telling. You have 80 hours of real estate here. That's all you got. 100 hours of real estate, whatever it is. And you're going to waste 60 minutes, 100 minutes or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm bad with math. But like, you have a finite amount of time to tell the 80s.
Yeah.
One of the most significant decades in British history.
Yeah.
In terms of upheaval and change.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we're going to retrod the same territory that the Windsors only watch out for the Windsors who get them on the throne.
Who, like, for me, I mean, there were many points in this episode that it lost me. But really, this part where Margaret is screaming at her mother, I was just like, how you want me to believe, Peter Morgan,
you're like a 50, 60-year-old woman, and this is all a surprise.
And you do not understand that your family would do this, that you are shocked that your family would do this. And like, we've talked about on this channel a lot already that we don't like the way this season is paced. We didn't like the way season 3 was paced and the way that they tell stories. But like, if you wanted to do a whole episode on the way the Windsors treated their cousins that had these men, great, humanize those people, tell their stories. You didn't care about their stories. You cared about their stories as they were a vehicle for Margaret. And that is hideous television. Hideous to use real people, real humans with real stories.
And real challenges and real struggles that were...
Like, yeah, the more we talk about it, the more upset I get about how they used those women's stories. But also, like, why were we surprised by this? Why did this episode need to happen?
And
what is this season? I don't know.
If when Margaret found out, she had a meltdown and all of that is true. If now, again, because they play so fast and loose with dates, I don't think that this happened. It just doesn't feel, this feels, I think it's the Vulture recap that says we don't know a lot about this, so it's perfect for a Crown episode because they can make everything else up.
They can just make everything up. Yeah.
So that's great. So you made a bunch of stuff up. Fine, you're allowed to do that. That's what historical fiction is. So what you made up, again, is retrotting territory we've already had, telling us things about the Queen Mum and about Margaret that we already knew. So all I can surmise is that you wanted to give Helena Bonham Carter her Emmy reel, which 2 thumbs way up you did. Like, please, I want that woman to be Margaret all the time. That's great. Give her her own show and let's focus on her. If you wanted to, at this point, like, completely diverge from Charles and Diana, which would be a little bit dumb because they're the best TV ever, but like, and just tell me the story of the sisters as they enter their dotage, amazing. I would watch that forever.
Like, the scenes with Helena Bonham Carter and Olivia Colman were the scenes that I loved.
I love Lizzie being like, did you honestly not know the guy that you were sleeping with was gay? Did you honestly not know this?
That was amazing. She was like, Margaret, he's a friend of Dorothy. And she was like, since when?
Really?
Ever. Who knew?
Everybody.
Everyone. Like, it was amazing. And then the scene when they were getting the books down.
My corgis know.
Yeah. And the scene when they were getting the books down, like, they were just like, mind yourself on that ladder. No, I've got it. Oh, don't you dare. Like, forever. I would watch
2 of them forever. Be
sisters forever, like a different, slightly weird version of Golden Girls.
Fantastic. I'd take it. But let's throw Anne in there for some spice, please, because I do love some Anne.
We love some Anne. But like we don't know what the next episode is because we haven't watched it at this stage. But I can guarantee you, it's going to pivot right back to Charles and Diana, and this narrative whiplash is actually making me dizzy. And then we probably won't get significant Margaret content for the rest of the season because clearly he just looks at his to-do list and like checks it. He's like, Northern Ireland, episode 1, check. Poverty
Australian nationalism, check.
Poverty and Margaret Thatcher, check. Never mention it again. Like, the historian in me is like, there's a problem with telling history on a continuum. But you need to do it sometimes. You need to, like, if you're making a thread, if by say you're like stitching the story of the 80s, and you can't just keep dropping threads like, oh, there's the economy thread done, then it won't follow through and you're going to have a really ugly looking stitch. Like,
I have a friend who loves Charles and Diana. She loves the royalty. She loves the pomp and circumstance, but she would not be somebody who I think, and I think this is fair. Like, she doesn't really know the history of Britain. It's not been something, like, she's born in upper New York State. Like, it's never affected her life. And we were talking last night and she was like, I hated everything about this season. And it just was so, like, as she kept talking, it was everything that we've been saying. It was like, if I want the story of Charles and Diana, this wasn't the story of Charles and Diana. Like, if you're not going to tell a story about, like, she was pretty much like, if Elizabeth, it should have been Elizabeth, Charles, and Diana. That's the season. Like, and she was like, why did I care about Margaret Thatcher? I was like, you didn't. He wanted to put his girlfriend in the show, which, amazing. Cool.
And, like, Gillian Anderson is phenomenal. Like,
she was great. I mean, I didn't love the wigs concerned me several times. But again, his girlfriend needs an Emmy. I don't disagree. But then write her own show. Like, you want to do Margaret Thatcher in the 80s? I will tell you, there's a lot of people who would bankroll that.
I was about to say, we love to tell Margaret Thatcher's story. We've told it many times already. I'm sure we'll tell it again because, you know, we love to tell the same stories over and over and over and over and over.
But we haven't had we have not had a highly produced bio series, and that is true. Or really much fictional content outside of The Iron Lady, which, like, everybody I know just laughs off as a terrible movie. So,
like, bank it. Netflix.
Go for it. Lean into it. Give her something to do.
You know, if she's keen to do it, let her do it and run with it. Like, that's the thing that's frustrating me too, right? Is, like, for so long, and especially we've gotten a lot more Olivia Colman in season 4, I should say, which makes me happier. But season 3, we both agreed, wasted Olivia Colman. He gets the most incredible acting talent, and then, like, just kind of sprinkles them in there. Aside from Josh O'Connor and Emma Corrin, who are, like, the most consistently in this season, but still, like, they didn't well, Charles, I guess, showed up, but, like, Emma Corrin didn't have a speaking line in this episode. But they're just sprinkling these fantastic acting humans, and I'm like, if you want to give them more space, like, write a different show.
I have a feeling you've made Netflix so much money that they will be happy to give you another show.
They're just banking everything right now, especially because movie theaters continue to stay closed and they know they're making a crap ton of money. But, like, yeah, it's just, this was a terrible episode, even without the poorly done discrimination and redundant, like, writing of these humans that were their cousins in this mental institution. Like, take that out and it was still a terrible episode. Add that in, it was a terrible and insulting episode.
It's the best summary I could have come up with. I think like I said last episode, I know what's coming for Charles and Diana in real life, and I'm assuming if they don't have her singing Phantom of the Opera in this show, they've wasted a seriously, like, cringe opportunity. But I am already... So nervous. We'll see if that's next episode. We've got 3 more to go, guys, and we know we end in 1990. So
buckle up.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.